guys, what's going on, and welcome to what should be an Eagles film room here on Philly Sports Network, but unfortunately NFL Game Pass aren't playing ball. They've still not uploaded the coaches' film for their European servers, which means I can't really dive into it. But I felt bad not giving you any kind of film breakdown. You know I've got a really weird work habit. So what I wanted to do was just take a dive back into the TV broadcast and try and work out what the hell happened against Washington and what needs to change against the Rams. Because if we're talking Carson Wentz, if we're talking the coaching staff, and we're talking the fact that Carson Wentz passed 42 times when you've got a 17-0 lead, and you're going against Aaron Donald, you're going against Jalen Ramsey, something's got to change. And I wanted to work out exactly what happened for the Eagles. Like, why did it go so badly? So we're going to take a look into that today and just try and theorize about what we may see moving forward. But before we start that, guys, it would be amazing if you could hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy this content, we have just launched PSN Radio. It is every single Philly Sports Network podcast. So myself, Flipping the Birds, a load of new shows on the horizon as well, all coming to you in one place instead of having to get them from a million angles. So there are links in the description, but any podcast platform you subscribe to, PSN Radio is the place to be. 5 stars on there or a follow would be absolutely amazing. Now I want to start with two very, very obvious things, okay? The elephants in the room here are there are going to be people that are very inherently defending Carson Wentz, and that's okay. That is absolutely okay, but as I addressed on Monday, I think it's also okay to admit that you found the love of your life, but you don't like the fact that they listen to a certain style of music or a TV show grates on you, or you argue about silly things. Like, that's gonna happen. Wentz shouldn't be exempt from criticism, and that's what we want to dive into today. The second thing is that the offensive line was obviously very bad, very banged up, and playing against a very good, very dominant Washington defensive line. So that was always going to end badly. The second you lose Lane Johnson, the second you've got Jason Peters back at left tackle, who struggled against Chase Young in that second half. I was very questionable of his efforts at some points. You've got obviously Nate Herbig making his first start after just 3 career snaps at guard in the past. That is always going to be problematic. Is that the running backs really struggled without Miles Sanders, and it wasn't the fact that Doug Peterson didn't run the ball. We'll touch on that a bit later. But in pass protection, Boston Scott had a couple of big misses. Corey Clement had a couple very big misses, and it really hurt Carson Wentz not having someone to properly diagnose a blitz, to pick up a block, or engage properly. It was just really sloppy from the running backs, and there were times where the running backs looked good, but I think they were schemed out of their depth to a certain degree, and we'll touch on that in just a little sec. Now, the thing is that this Eagles offense underwent a massive change this offseason in 2 facets. One was the coaching staff, the other was the players. Now, the first one, the team brought in Rich Scangarello, they brought in Marty Morninveg, with the premise that it was clear towards the end of last season Carson Wentz was dominant on play-action passes, on rollouts and outside the pocket, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, was this because there was no talent to really make him useful inside the pocket? Was it because Wentz needed the time outside of it and allow his players to adjust for him to make the throws? It could be a combination of both of those things. But outside the pocket was where Carson Wentz made his pay dirt in that beautiful run towards the end of 2019. We don't need to go into analytics to discuss that. You just flip on the film, you watch him throw some absolute darts, and it's all you need to see. Now, the other thing complementing that was, you think Rich Scangarello came in from Denver towards the end of last season. I've already made a video on this, but Drew Lock ran a lot of play action. The second that QB switch happened, a lot of play action, a lot of rollouts to utilize players such as Cortland Sutton, and it worked well. I think you're even seeing that now with the Denver Broncos, that they're keeping that mentality. Now, where Scangarello was criticised, and this is very important, was a severe lack of adjustments and a failure to really understand the flow of the game. And Joe Flacco came out and said this, and there was a little bit of a worry there that, considering Doug Peterson has some noticeable habits and patterns that followed him into this season, adding someone that has a similar sort of mentality may not be the best idea, although probably the most important in terms of weight it will carry for the offense. The big thing with that is that Denver's offense in 2019, in the first half of games, absolutely brilliant. In the second half, Scangarello's scripting is brilliant. The second that teams really adapt to it and work out what's going on, they don't give up that much leverage and Denver end up in a little bit of trouble. Which is why backdoor covers on the Broncos, if you're a betting man, rarely a good idea. And then you've got Marty Moninweg, or Air Marty, someone that's whole mentality is predicated on the deep passing game. So what you get is you get a play-action ready quarterback, someone that's thriving outside the pocket. You get a coach that is very familiar with play-action concepts, having utilized them massively last year, and an offensive mastermind in Marty who's been around Philadelphia for years, understands all of these concepts, and has recently worked with Lamar Jackson. That should work good on paper. It didn't. Player-wise, we all know the Eagles added a bunch of speed at the wide receiver position, and that was very visible on Sunday. You see Jalen Reagor hitting 20 miles an hour on his first reception. You know things are off to a good start. The first drive, wonderful. We couldn't criticize it for any reason whatsoever. It was a perfect balance of RPO. Carson Wentz was poised inside the pocket. I loved what I saw from guys like Dallas Goedert, and what the Eagles very notably did in that first half was use players on wide receiver screens and take advantage of the fact that those off corners, those safeties are going to be so aware of those posts and corner routes that if there's a screen and they bite down, you're going to unleash someone like Dallas Goedert. They also sent out Zach Ertz as this sort of decoy to allow Dallas Goedert to thrive down the field. That worked really well. And in turn, Goedert got a 100-yard game in this Golden State level offense where if one shooter goes down, another one can step up. The problem is that there has been a trend with Doug Peterson when it comes to the run game in recent years. And in weeks 1 through 6, 7, 8, can't get the balance right. Cannot get it right. You go back to 2016, you get it all the way through, and it's the same pattern. Eagles didn't run a lot of rushing concepts. Not in terms of they didn't run the ball. They were just running outside zone like the entire game. And it sucked, and it got very predictable. So if you've got an RPO game based on weak side counters or outside zone runs, sooner or later the defense is going to catch on to that and they're going to start making some waves. If you're basing a play action game off of that and it's very clear where the running backs are going, suddenly against the poor O-line, very easy to get to a quarterback who isn't getting outside the pocket. Now, I counted twice in the first quarter that Carson Wentz rolled outside the pocket. One was scripted, one I think was improvised from what I saw. Outside of that, nothing. The entire game. Every play action look was inside the pocket. And there is a very, very terrifying statistic that came from Daniel Jeremiah just minutes before I was going to record this, that 7 of 8 sacks came when Carson Wentz was holding the ball for more than 4 seconds. That is not good. That is really not good. He was pressured 9 times with 7 sacks on 10 dropbacks when holding onto the ball over 4 seconds, and was 1 for 3 and 11 yards on the passes he got off after holding the ball for 4 seconds. So what you've got now, if we put all this together, is an offense that is running a lot of play action, keeping the ball in Carson Wentz's hands, has a 17-point lead, and he's just doing nothing but searching for deep threats because the game didn't adapt, because the game plan didn't change. It was just the same old thing recycled. It felt like watching Madden. It was 4 verticals every time. And when you've got a quarterback who has noticeably had a problem with his internal clock and getting the ball away and been very careless with ball security, not in careless throws, but in terms of when he's going to the ground just aimlessly launching it to get it away, or when taking a sack, fighting that little bit more and fumbling. A guy that's fumbled 50 times in 57 games, and someone that struggles to really understand when to take a check down and when to take a shot down deep. It doesn't matter if it's double, triple coverage. When the cards are stacked against Carson Wentz in those situations, you go back to the Saints in 2018, you go back to the Patriots last year, you go back to week 1 here. The second that pressure mounts, maybe it's injuries, maybe it's a choking lead, Wentz will want chunk plays. And if you've got a coaching staff that is trying to force that and force chunk plays against an offensive line that is surrendering a ton of pressure and receivers who have no time to get open, I don't know what you expect. It has to change. Carson Wentz outside the pocket, brilliant. That has to be the priority. Get him on the move, get him outside the pocket. Is that going to change in week 2 against Aaron Donald? It has to, because if you look at what the Rams did to the Cowboys in week 1, they knew they didn't have the safety, they didn't have the speed to keep up with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and account for Ezekiel Elliott. Not happening. So what they did was a lot of cover 2. They were just sitting safeties back and playing a lot of soft zone and trying to allow the Cowboys to come to them and get their playmakers in a position to make a play. If that's going to happen with this Eagles offense and this Eagles team goes in against the Rams and you have to run 8 yards against Jalen Ramsey before you have a break and Carson Wentz is staring down Jalen Reagor or Deshaun Jackson or whoever, and you're telling me it's on a play action or a 5-step drop inside the pocket, it's going to end very, very badly. And it is a bit scary. The Eagles have to adapt here. They have to adjust. They did not adjust at all in game 1. What we saw after the first couple of drives was the same for the rest of the game. It was barely any running. If it was to the outside, play action inside the pocket, and 3-step drops with sit routes. That was it. That was all they did. All they did for the rest of that game. It was just hunting for the deep throws, non-stop, searching, just chunk, 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 chunk every single time. And the defense caught onto it. And that was Washington. And you're now coming up against a brand new Rams that isn't like the one they've beaten in the last few years. It's not the Wade Phillips monster that we knew. It's now coached by a much younger mind, someone that loves hybrid players, that loves the idea of disguising looks that we saw against the Cowboys and very nearly had a couple of big plays against them. And that might catch Carson Wentz off guard. We've seen it before. If the Eagles have any hope of winning on Sunday, they've got to, A, get the ball out quick. If you know you've got Aaron Donald and your corners are 10 yards away, screens, dumps, slants, anything to get the ball out of his hands fast. Because if you look at what Dallas Goedert did, that was perfect. Dallas Goedert, yards after the catch, sitting in between soft zone, Carson Wentz holding linebackers so Goedert can get upfield. Perfect. Couldn't ask for better. When that didn't happen is when things fell apart and when Carson Wentz got over aggressive, when the coaching staff didn't change. What you've got is just a rock and a brick and hoping to find a spongy surface in the middle. It's not going to happen. They're going to erode each other down, and that's what we saw. Wentz was having a bad day at the office. He was missing easy throws. He was misplacing timing all over the place. You take that with a coaching staff that will not remove that element of the game and focus its entire existence on it, and you're set up for disaster. It was bad on Sunday, but the coaching staff failed him just as much as he failed the coaching staff. And if that does not change against this Rams team, then I don't know what will happen. But guys, I want to know what you think, because I know this is something we've gone over a little bit before, but after looking at it and looking at the impact that I thought Scangarello was going to have, and all we're seeing is just a very bland, nothing but taking deep shots offense. If you've got a deep threat, you know they're going deep. Like, that's adding one and one together. And if you're not going to try and do anything to confuse that formula, then defenses are going to have the answer to it. And when there's a bad offensive line and there is no variety and there is a quarterback that just has the same mentality to make everything happen in one play, it's going to end badly. The Eagles have to make a change. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. It'd be amazing if you could hit that subscribe button. From myself, Liam Jenkins, I'll see you soon.